everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Box. Tonight we have got Dennis Carroll with us. Most of you know him. Hi, Denise, Jason. Let's see, who else we got out here? Denise, Jason, um, Blue Eyed Bandit, and Sherry's in the chat. Hi, Sherry.
So are you.
Yeah, I usually am. So, but how has your day been?
It's been good. We didn't get as much rain as we were supposed to. And because they were talking yesterday, but it turned sunny, and today it's kind of humid. It was weird. We jumped up to 70s. So,
Well, we have a massive storm, tornado weather headed my way, so keep my fingers crossed because I hate when that happens. The only place for me to go is in the closet. It's like open up the door, park my wheelchair in front of it, and jump on in. Don't know how the wheelchair is going to get moved or the door is going to get closed, but hey, well.
We got some good ditches outside that might be safer than where I'm at, but
That's horrible. Ditches. We gotta hit the ditches.
We do.
I don't know. I don't know how I would fare in a ditch. I'm not sure. I do live in Texas, so probably every snake and tarnation will be in that ditch.
Yeah. Well, we got snakes too. They're just not ready yet.
Yeah. So we are going to go ahead and bring Dennis out and talk a little with him about some experiences. Hi there, Dennis.
Ladies. I was just thinking when you were talking about snakes there. It reminds me of that southern saying, nothing lower than a snake's belly in a ditch.
That's right. Or, yeah, there is me on my belly in a ditch.
Oh my
gosh. That's where, when it comes to tornadoes, that's definitely where I'll be. In a ditch on my belly, definitely. Where I live, we have sort of a tornado alley too. Once in a while, it seems like they all come through here. They have to visit the neighborhood once in a while, but it can get very scary sometimes out there. Definitely, I've done some storm chasing over the years, a little bit of storm chasing, and that is not a great recreational thing. I don't advise it unless you know exactly what you're doing. Sometimes they end up chasing you.
Yeah, I have some that I watch every once in a while on YouTube, and I think to myself, boy, you guys are crazy. Look at you. We could just drive right in it. Woohoo!
Some of them.
Yeah, it's sort of like, living dangerously, definitely. And
I guess it's just the thrill, I mean, some people like to hunt. Some people like to chase.
Well, that's what I told them. They'll say, "Oh, we're in gathering scientific, stuff for scientific facts." And I say, "Come on, let's be honest. We're enjoying we like the thrill of it.
Right.
That's part of it."
Yeah.
That kind of goes with the paranormal too. When you think about it.
Yep.
It's sort of similar to storm chasing. You're living on the edge. It does get exciting sometimes, but about 90% of it is very boring. That's what you never see on television.
Yep. I know. I sit there and think there is no way, because, I've been to places like cemeteries and different stuff like that. There is no way that you can just walk into this place and all of a sudden, boom, activity starts. It's not really the way it works. Sometimes you can get lucky, but how many times do they have to just keep recording that before they finally get stuff, It's like,
absolutely, that's the way it appears that way on television with these guys. Everywhere they go, they get, it's haunted. That's not true. There are actually some places out there that aren't, definitely. But what always gets me about that, and I'm back in the past, a couple of times I've been offered my own television shows and stuff like that. But they never wanted to fool with me much because I was too honest about it. Trying to do it the right way and be honest and straightforward about it. They, television, they want a lot of drama. You know, as long as they really appear larger than life most of the time. And I was just too honest with it, I guess. But anyway, you don't see that, that part where you sit 3 or 4 hours alone in a room in the dark with nothing happening.
Yeah.
You don't see that part. That's not exciting, and I can understand why that. I can understand that would be boring for your audience to watch. But it's very strange how something always happens right before a commercial break.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Always.
it
Or when
might
it
be
does
planned.
happen. Or I like when it does happen and everybody throws things up and run out of the building screaming. What do you think you came here for?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what that happened to me when I actually saw Bigfoot the first time. I mean, I was very close to him, face to face, almost. I mean, I could smell this guy close up, And a lot of people said, "I bet you ran, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, I ran towards him.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I wanted to see more of it.
Here.
And when I went into law enforcement, we were talking about that. Most people sane people would run away when you shoot at them. But when you shoot at cops, we run at you. We don't run
Yeah.
away to you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Does that mean that we weren't sane?
yeah. That don't make a whole lot of sense, but that's part of the job, I guess. But anyway, I have been shot at, so I know how I feel. That is sort of I told somebody that the other day. That's kind of the ultimate insult when somebody shoots at you. They just basically don't really like you at all.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what
It's
it is.
amazing. They call you for help, but then on the other hand, they fight you.
Oh yeah,
Make
yeah.
that make
You know,
sense.
I have unfortunately, met a lot of women that like their boyfriends would beat them up. And I remember once she was like, I think about 6 months pregnant, and he kicked her in the stomach and all this stuff. And I asked her, I said, well, why in the world do you stay with somebody like that? Why? I mean, somebody like that doesn't love you, but I love him, And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not,
It all goes in that
right.
path of like mental abuse and all that stuff because in a situation with somebody who is abused like that, that other person has them convinced that they can't live without them, that they need them in their lives. And it's a sad situation, but that's how they do it. It is mental abuse to its fullest.
It's almost like a mental illness in many
Yeah.
ways. Yes, it really
Yeah.
is. Unfortunately, yeah. But people, and that's the thing I've run into with the paranormal and cryptid research and all that, which I've been involved in that now for well over half a century. I'm not going to say how old I am. I hope I don't look that old. But
Anyway,
anyway, people are going to believe what they want to believe, And I've said this to somebody the other day. I could show you a picture with my arm around Bigfoot and Elvis standing there with us, and nobody would ever believe it. Okay.
right?
And, I mean, that's just why. What are we doing? I told somebody one time, "Oh, I want to show this to everybody. I want to show." I said, "Well, what? They're only going to believe what they want to believe, no matter what evidence you have. The main thing is to please yourself and not try to please other people.
Yes.
Be
Yes.
happy with what you're doing and the evidence you're accumulating, but don't make that your life." Ambition to go out and prove things to people.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Believe,
I have a visitor. I need to get her down. Hang on, because she likes to attack me when I'm on live. Okay, Daddy.
Oh, your kitty.
I know. Growl at her.
I want to cozy up a little bit there.
Yeah, no, she just does that. It's a trap.
I've never seen her do that.
Yeah, every once in a while when she does that, it's because she is in the mood that she wants to beat up mommy.
Ah.
And I have to get her down because I actually fell for it one time. I let her up here and I was petting her. And all of a sudden she just whipped around. Her ears went flat. Her eyes turned completely black. And she jumped me. And when she did, I was bleeding all over the place. And we were on a live. And I'm like, I'll be right back.
Oh, no. I missed that one.
Oh, no, I was on somebody else's show.
Oh, okay.
That happened. She's just, she's a good cat. I keep her because I've had her for 7 years and I saved her when she was a little itty bitty baby. Her eyes weren't even open. But I've always been mommy, and I screwed up with her when she was younger. I would wrestle with her, you know. So now it's like, okay, mom, I'm ready to beat you up. So I have to be careful with her, and because I don't
I've
have
seen a lot of people do that with dogs over the years. They wrestle them, and but
yeah,
unfortunately, it makes them a little aggressive,
yeah.
and that's not good either. Definitely not.
Now, usually my little dog keeps her in check. She's not allowed up on my bed. That's why she jumped up here on the desk. And the minute he knew she was up here, he started growling. And I'm like, okay, you got to go. You got to, because he chases her off. He does not care for my cat, but she's twice as big as him.
Oh,
She's a big girl.
I've got about like 5 cats that live on my porch out there, and of course, you know, when I walk out, they say, "Oh, it's that man with food again," you know.
Yeah.
I get swamped every now and then, but I hate to see anything starve, you know. And evidently, people leave these, you know, put them out and all this. But one cat that showed up, she was pregnant, and she had two babies. One male, one female. They're hanging out there now, so the family has expanded. So.
Of course. I had some that used to live when I lived in the country. They used to live outside. And one, when she was little, I brought her in, and I loved her. I brought her in, and she stayed in the house. She could care less about everybody else out there. But I used to put food out there, and I would go out there in the morning to put the food out. Here comes all the cats, and then raccoons, and then possums. It's like I fed the whole frickin' entire wilderness outside my door. Then across the road, we had people with peacocks, and they would come over. And I'm like, I feel like I was running a zoo. I should have charged everybody just for feeding their animals and coming and looking at the zoo on my porch, sitting there eating cat food. It was great. I actually liked it.
I've been buying 16 pounds of cat food every month or so.
wow.
And luckily that's been holding out. But anyway, I don't think I want any more. But, you know, I like cats for one reason. It's good to have cats around. They're supposed to be spiritual protectors, you know.
Yeah.
And keep away evil spirits. So if that's the case, the evil spirits are definitely going to stay out of my neighborhood. But I'm going to tell you a strange event that happened to me one time concerning cats. And that's why I say about cats, they're like animals that walk between worlds. You know, they're sort of, you know, very spiritual animals in many ways. Very unlike dogs. Now, dogs are sort of your protectors in the physical world, you know, and whereas cats are more like the, you know, spiritual. But I had something happen to me, and this was many, many years ago, and I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this, but they used to, once upon a time, they would bring people passed away, they would bring them home, you know, and they would have a funeral at home. And, you know, that would be, you know, the body would be at the house. And this happened. This is the last time I remember them doing this. From then on, they used mostly funeral homes, you know. But my grandmother died, and they brought her to my aunt's house. Okay, and they had the you know, visitation there. And usually when this happens overnight, the body stays there overnight, you know, for like the next day. So somebody has to sit up with the body. That was somebody's job, just to sit up with the corpse. I never understood that why. I mean, you know, like I say, they don't do that anymore, which is good, really. You know, I mean, it's a very good thing they don't do that. But anyway, my mother and father and me, we had to sit up that night with my grandmother's corpse. And it was in the house, and it was like I remember it very well. It was like, it was summer, but not real hot. Maybe it was, you know, early summer, something like that. And so my mother and father were sitting up. I guess all the rest of the family left, except my aunt. I think she lived there, and she was like, went to bed, was in a bedroom in the house. But anyway, right along about midnight, I woke up because my parents were doing something. You know, I don't know what, you know, I was probably asleep in the chair there or something. I woke up, I knew something was going on, you know. And what it was, along about until midnight, every cat in that neighborhood was trying to get in that house. They were climbing up the walls outside. They were climbing up the door, and they were hollering. I mean, they were meowing, and they were just scratching, trying to get in that house. And my father, who never really liked cats very much, my father would go out and run them off. He'd get them off the porch, run them off, and just as soon as he got back in and sat down, they'd come right back. And this happened all night long. You talking about a weird, eerie situation. You're sitting there with a corpse, and these cats are hollering like this, wailing outside, climbing all over the windows and the doors out there. I don't know what would have happened if they'd have got in the house. But that was very strange, very weird thing. And I guess I went to sleep, but they stayed up all night keeping these cats off the porch and coming back in. Finally, when dawn came, the sun come up, the cats went away. They were all out. And I found out later, I remember this happening, my mother and father talked about it sometime after that. But as I got older, I did research on that. And this has happened before. And there is an old superstition. Me, I've always been involved in folklore. There's an old superstition is that when somebody dies in the family, you need to tell the family cat. And the family cat will tell all the other cats. Supposedly. This is an old superstition. And if you don't do that, then they will get offended. Supposedly. And come visit. And that was what was happening that night. And this is the weird. I mean, I saw this actually happen. Okay. Now, whether that's the reason why, I think, me, I've always looked at things from a practical side. My motto is first you must prove what it is not before you can prove what it is, And I think it has something to do with the embalming fluid, the smell that's attached to that. I think that was what was. I don't think it was anything paranormal to that extent. I think it was more of something like the smell of the embalming fluid or something like that drew them in there like that. But that we don't notice that anymore because nobody does that at home anymore.
I had somebody tell me one time that a lot of times when you have a cat in the house, if you pass away and nobody knows it, that it'll eat you. So I always say my cat comes at the middle of the night and she will actually do something to check on me because I know if I die in my sleep, she's going to be the first one to eat me.
I haven't heard that.
Well, now,
horrible.
Oh my gosh.
Well, actually, here's a weird thing. I had a neighbor, and she was an elderly lady, lived by herself. She had 2 dogs. She had little poodles, and she passed away in her house, and nobody knew about it for about 2 or 3 days. And she was in there with those dogs, and they never did anything to her. Here's the thing about that: if I think it was sort of like a larger animal than a dog or a cat, it would, decide to take a nibble on you. But, dogs and cats usually are not fed that way. They're not, conditioned for that. Even wolves in the wild will not eat carrion unless they're starving. Now, that's a different matter. It's a matter of survival,
Right.
They don't. Most of the time, they will not eat a dead body because look, it's very healthy not to do so.
Exactly.
Very smart, very intelligent animals. By the way, I've studied them for many, many years. They're right up there with dolphins in my book. Very close to it. Dolphins may be smarter. We were talking about dolphins the other day. By the way, here's a weird fact on that. Under federal law, it is against the law to harass a dolphin. You're not even supposed to talk to them.
What? You can't talk to them?
I'm here now. Dolphins don't talk to them. You'll be breaking the law, okay? Why are we not supposed to talk to dolphins? Do they know something we need to know or what?
Yeah.
I think that they learn. Dolphins learn a lot faster than most animals. They're actually very intelligent. So maybe they think somebody's going to talk to them and teach them something that they don't want them to know.
Oh yeah, that's true. And animals are very sensitive. I used to invest. I do a lot of spiritual investigation over the years, and I used to take my dog with me. And I could depend upon that dog to tell me stuff that even scientific instruments would not. He was very, very sensitive. And animals, dogs and cats, here's the good thing about them. They don't lie to you.
Right.
They
And they
tell
love
you
you
exactly what they
unconditionally.
feel, you know,
Yeah.
instinctively wise. But they're not going to lie to you. And I have had scientific instruments lie to me, okay? I mean, they've actually been, wrong, something wrong with them, whatever. But you could trust the dog, the animal, over that. And, here's the interesting thing. We don't pay attention to our animals like we really should. We could communicate with them better if we did.
Yeah.
If we paid more attention and learned how their nuances are, how sensitive they are to certain things, as a law enforcement officer, we used to do a lot of safety checks on people, and we'd go to the house, be knocking on the door. We'd have to knock all around the house, knocking on the door. Finally, get somebody to the door to make sure they was okay. Also, it was let's check on them, and you could hear the dog inside barking, bark, bark, bark. And I asked the people, I said, did you not hear your dog barking? Did you not know that there was probably somebody out there? Oh, he does that all the time. I don't pay attention to it. But I thought, how crazy, because, your dog is trying to tell you something.
Yes. Mine, when she barks, my puppy, I go. My other one used to bark. We'd have to go and investigate. That's
My dog used to let me know when the mailman was out there. You know what I'm saying?
my other
Oh,
one used to let
God.
me know of every
we don't
delivery
we don't
truck.
pay attention. And that has happened to me out in the woods. I have watched animals, birds, deer, and all that stuff. If you watch them, they're communicating with you.
Yeah.
You know.
I
But
had
people,
a
oh, no.
I had a hummingbird feeder outside of my house one day, and I went out there and looked and realized it was empty. And I thought, okay, I got to bring this in and go refill it. So I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, this hummingbird comes over and it sticks its beak into the empty feeder and actually flew in front of me and made this noise and went away. Like, you need to fill that. I'm hungry. I was like, wow, I'm sorry. It was mad because it had no food.
They're not afraid of people. I had one chase me across a big old front yard. I thought it was like a wasp or something. I caught out of the corner of my eye and I started booking, and it started chasing after me. And then I stopped and turned. I'm like, what? I'm being chased by a hummingbird.
Yeah.
Well, funny you should mention that. I was going to tell you this. Back in the old days, most everybody, especially on farms, they had beehives.
Yeah.
You had your own natural honey that you made, all that stuff. And there is a superstition, very much like the cats, that says if somebody dies in the family, you need to tell the bees. You have to go out to the hive and tell them that so and so died, because they say if you don't, they will leave. They'll find out they're dead and they'll leave.
Yep.
Or something like that.
I
But
heard
it's a
that
very
one
strange
before.
superstition. So you can see somebody out there knocking on the beehives and talking to the bees.
I do that. I talk to the bees too.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that talk to animals all the time.
A lot of superstitions connected to stuff like that. Like, they used to, if somebody died in the house, they would cover the mirrors because they believed the souls could become trapped in the mirrors. And, mirrors are freaky, freaky things.
Yeah.
If, according to some occultic practices, if you cross mirrors, it's almost like creating a portal, a spiritual portal. And it's never a good idea, supposedly, to sleep under a mirror like that. Supposedly, look at Alice in Wonderland through the looking glass.
Yes.
And I don't do a lot of mirrors in my house. The one that I use to do my hair and stuff is one that I can put away. I don't leave it out, and if it is out, I turn it to where it points up and it's not pointing out into the room. I don't know. I just have this weird thing with mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like the one in the bathroom. I want to take it out. But
as a demonologist, I can tell you this: demons absolutely hate mirrors.
Really?
Oh,
They don't like them at all. And they can use them though, like portals if they need to, but they hate mirrors. As a matter of fact, I had a consult. I do a lot of paranormal consultations, and I had a consultation the other day with a lady who has a problem with a voodoo priestess living next door to her, and this priestess has done some stuff to her dogs and some other stuff that she had. And I advised her that probably a good idea, and I've heard this before, is to get small mirrors, little small stick-on mirrors, and put them in your windows, shiny side out, reflective side out. Supposedly that will keep evil spirits out of your house.
Really?
oh,
I'll try that. Because
Yeah.
we have traffic sometimes
Mhm.
here where I live.
Well, they don't like to see themselves in the mirrors because they see themselves for what they truly are, an evil, terrible, ugly looking things. And they don't like to. And also, it's sort of like a gargoyle. The gargoyles were created to fool other demons into thinking that there's a demon already there. They go on somewhere else. Mirrors accomplish the same thing in some ways. But demons are smarter than that, by the way, I think. But supposedly, they're supposed to fool the demon into believing there's another demon there and they'll go on somewhere else. Jack-o'-lanterns are for the same thing at Halloween. They supposedly fool evil spirits to believe that there's one already there. But having met demons, I know they're a little bit smarter than that. But I could see where some of them might be dumb enough to believe that.
speaking of, so I thought we would talk a little bit about some of the things that you have experienced in as long as you have been doing this stuff and whatever it is that you're comfortable talking about. So, like some of the things that you've encountered, how you've dealt with it. You know what I mean?
Well, I had a very strange incident. I was talking about this the other day. That happened many years ago in a house probably about 3 miles from where I'm at right now. A minister told me about this. He told me about this elderly couple that they didn't have any children or grandchildren or anything. I think they had a small dog, and they lived in this house. It's just a little very small, modest little house. I think it might have had 4 rooms in it, something like that. And I guess you might call it more like a cottage than a house. But they had something in the house with them. And I asked the minister, I said, well, what's going on with that? He was telling me about it. And he said, well, they have a family Bible. And, most of the old folks used to have a great big family Bible, and they would leave in the living room, on a stand. And that's where theirs was. It was on the TV sitting over there next to the front window in the living room. And it said, no matter whatever they put that Bible on, every time they would go back and look at it, it would be on John 3:16.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, this began to concern them a little bit because no matter what they did, next time they check and look again, that's where it would be. Now, he said that there was no windows open in this house. There was no breeze in it. I don't even think they had they didn't even have an air conditioning unit in this house, And it wasn't anything like the wind blowing, and it just happened to do that. There was something else definitely going on. That's what the minister told me. And I said, well, that's very interesting. Let me, investigate this a little bit and see what's going on. So I got in touch with the couple. They're very, very nice. And they said, sure, you can stay here with us one evening and see for yourself. They said, no matter what we do, eventually that's where this Bible ends up on John 3:16. I thought this was very peculiar. And so I said, sure, I like to stay, the evening. I got there almost dark. And we were sitting around talking. And I think they made some coffee. And we were just sitting there talking. And they had moved. I put the Bible, when I first got there, I put the Bible on Psalm 91. That's my favorite psalm, one of my favorites. I put it on that. And I said, okay, that's, where I'm at. And when I said, we're going to sit down over here and we're going to watch that Bible. Okay, we're going to do some Bible watching on that. And so I was sitting there talking. We were drinking coffee. Now the old fella, he had a easy chair. I think his wife, she was kind of sitting on the couch with me. She was on one side of the couch, on that side of the room, and we were both on the couch. And he was in the easy chair. Next to the easy chair was a table with a little small lamp on it. And And I was watching him. I was talking to him. I mean, I could see him clearly. And all of a sudden, that lamp just fell off of that table.
Mhm.
And it didn't break or nothing. You know, it didn't shatter or nothing. And he jumped up and said, I didn't do that. You know, I could see he didn't do it because I was looking at him, you know. And I said, that is very odd. So we put picked the lamp and put it back up on the table. It's all right. You know, nothing wrong with it. I check it out and it works fine. I go over and look at the Bibles on John 3:16.
Wow.
I said, okay, this is sort of like a demon trick thing going on here. Okay. They're having a little fun with us here. And I said, we're gonna. I put the Bible back on Psalm 91, and I said, we're gonna sit down right here and we're gonna watch that Bible really close now. You know, we're gonna really keep an eye on it. So we're sitting there. We sat there maybe about an hour or so. We're just talking and watching this Bible because I can clearly see it. You know, right in front of me, and nothing's happening. I watch it, nothing's moving, and it might have been about 10 o'clock at night, and there's a knock at the back door. And the old man gets up. Who in the world could that be this night time of the night? You know, he gets up, and I said, wait a minute. I said, whatever you do, don't open that door until you look outside and make sure that there's someone out there. And so he did that. He looked out the window, and I was still in there with her, and he come back in there and said, "There's nobody out there." And about the time he got back in the room, somebody knocked on the front door.
Oh.
So I got up and walked over, and I looked out the window. There's nothing out there. I turned back, look at the Bible. It's on John 3:16. We got distracted again by this thing.
Look over here.
Enough is enough, I said, and I spoke to it. I said, look, you're having some fun now, but your fun's going to stop. You're not going to bother. These people were very nervous about this stuff going on. They didn't like it. I mean, it wasn't, comical to them. They didn't find anything amusing about it, and I can understand why. Because who wants something like that in your house doing that?
Right.
So I said, well, I'll bring the minister back tomorrow, and we'll take care of the situation. When the minister and me went back the next day, we did a house blessing. We did a cleansing on the house, anointed the people, anointed their dog. I think I remember the dog didn't like it, but we got him anyway. So we did the whole works. I even went outside and cast salt around the whole perimeter of the yard. And it never happened again. That Bible stayed on Psalm 91.
Nice.
So we got rid of it. But that was a very peculiar thing. And what was so interesting about it to me, they used the holy book like that, against people was sort of, a very low blow kind of thing,
Wow.
Yeah, it found a way, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Kept you guys running while you're looking at all the things, knocks the lamp down. It's flipping the page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was doing all this to distract us, and that's the way these things will do that. They will try to get your attention off of what they want you to do. So like a magician, watch this hand while I'm doing something with this hand over here, kind of a thing. That's the way they do it like that.
I wonder why it kept going to the same verse or the same book.
Well, it was just doing that. I think, I don't think it had anything to, anything special about John 3:16, but I think it was picking out something they knew. That's a very famous verse. Everyone knows it by heart. It was picking out something they knew, and just to do that to them, And what it was doing was creating negativity, and it was feeding off of that fear and worry kind of thing going on.
Yeah,
that's the way they always work. Oh yeah, I advise a lot of people all over the world about these kind of situations, and they want attention. They want your acknowledgement of them. It makes them stronger. And when you take that away from them, when you quit feeding the baby will, shut up on you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
eventually.
That's the way you got to deal with these guys a lot of times because, we were talking about that very famous doll the other day, Annabelle, which is not scary looking at all, by the way. It's a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah.
Real life, It's not what the Hollywood movie looks like. But it was using that doll as an entrance into these people's lives. And it was going to use it as sort of like a fishing hook and a line to reel you in, kind of a thing. The demonic does that. It does that with objects. It does that with situations. It does that with people. But over the years, I've had a lot of run-ins with the demonic, and every time you do, you come away with something new. You learn something different. You know, I remember one time we were investigating. This was very dramatic. We were investigating a doctor's office, believe it or not,
Mm.
and what it was, this office was it was really like a clinic, and it was in an old house that they had renovated for this. And the doctor's office was his office upstairs. And downstairs was, the waiting room and the exam rooms and all that. Well, all night long, I had a big team in here. We had maybe 10 people on this team. And all night long, we investigated this whole place. I mean, we did the investigation. We did the whole 9 yards on it. And nothing happened. They came to me about 2 o'clock in the morning and said, hey, we're just wasting our time here. There's nothing here. I said, well, wait a minute. Let's go upstairs. I said, usually, and here's the weird thing about it. When you walk into a place that may have a spirit of some type in it, most of the time that spirit will get out of your way. It'll go hide away from you.
Yep.
You've experienced this, I know. And it will either go up or down. But there was no basement in this building, okay? But there was an upstairs. And I said, that's what I told him. I said, it could be that it's waiting upstairs. It could be hiding upstairs. And sure enough, I started getting reports back. Hey, this happened up there. Something like this happened. I said, oh, that's where it's at. That's where it's hot. I called it a hot area. Okay. Although it had cold spots with it. But it was a hot area. Okay. So I said, I had a guy with me. The other guy, he was sort of the one that managed the team, And I said, let's go up there. Let's me and you go into the doctor's office. Now, here's the weird thing. The activity in this building, a lot of the nurses and stuff reported getting pinched, getting pinched on the butt a little bit sometimes, or getting touched by this and whatever was in there was getting a little too friendly with the gals, okay? And they didn't like it. They were scared about it. They were freaked out, and that's understandable. And that's what was going on here. And the doctor, of course, did not believe any of this. The girls believed it. The nurses believed it. But the doctor, it's a bunch of junk, The doctor was having some problems with his wife, I think. Some other things were going on in his life. And that night, I walked into the doctor's office. This was his main office, okay, where he did his paperwork and all that, I could feel a little something about that room. Now, it was dark in there, but they had a lot of ambient light, like street lights outside. It wasn't dark. You could see stuff in it, It was pretty well lit. Not bright, but it was, lit enough to see. And so the guy I was with, he sat down at the doctor's desk, and I sat down at the chair in front of the desk. And we're sitting there, and I'll never will forget. I had a video recorder in. I had a video camera, and I had the infrared on it turned off. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of times, you got to look at the infrared. It is a light, but humans can't see it. Okay, animals can see it. I've seen moths fly around it. It is visible to certain things, but not to us. But some things in the paranormal, it is visible to. So I turned my infrared light off to sort of see if something wouldn't, happen. And sure enough, while we're sitting there, that guy sitting at the desk says, do you see that over there at the wall? And I look over the wall, and there's a shadow on the wall. It doesn't look like your regular normal shadow. And the shadow is maybe about 8 foot high. It goes up to the ceiling, and it's about maybe 5 foot wide. And I'm sitting there looking at this, and like I say now, I'm in the dark, but I can see, that's ambient light. This shadow is like, and the only way I can describe it is like it's pulling darkness into it.
Weird.
And as it does that, it gets bigger and bigger, slowly getting bigger. And all of a sudden, the guy says, look at it. He said, I see two red eyes looking at me. And sure enough, I look at it, and sure enough, there are two red eyes looking back out of the shadow.
Wow.
I am close enough to this thing, probably about a yard away from it, maybe 3 feet.
That's close.
And I look, and about the time he said that, it's almost like it turned and looked at me with the two red eyes. Now, these were not like out of some horror movie, glowing red, like, flashlights, but they were very damn red. I could see them. They were clearly eyes, in the head. I guess you would say the head of the shape like that. And as soon as it turned and looked at me, I felt it begin to attack me physically. I felt a cold numbness start creeping up my leg. And it got up to went over my knee, got up to my thigh, started going up to my chest, almost like having a heart attack or something,
Yeah.
And I knew it was attacking me physically, definitely. And the guy at the table at the desk, it was attacking him emotionally.
Yep.
He said to me at one point, I think I'm gonna have to leave. He said, I feel like the world has caved in on me. And I knew I'd been attacked that way before. I knew what he was talking about. I said, well, hang on a minute. I said, because this is not good. We're going to stop this right here. Okay, this is enough. I said, this is not good. And I look at that thing in the eyes. And then, like I said, this cold is creeping up, this numbness, weird feeling. Okay. And in my mind, I didn't speak this. That's the first time I ever had this. Usually you have to and revoke something like this. You have to get it off of you verbally. But I didn't say anything this time. It's the first time I ever done this. In my mind, I quoted a Bible verse: "Greater is He who is in me than he who is in the world." I said that in my mind, okay? And as soon as I said that, that feeling started rolling off of me. And looking, that shadow started getting smaller and smaller. I turned the video camera on it with the infrared, and it was gone.
Wow, that's cool.
But it took him, that guy with me, it took him a couple of weeks to get over that attack. That's how bad it got him. And I know I've been attacked all different ways in that way. I know how it feels. It is a very bad feeling. But he got over it. He never was quite the same about that afterwards, though. I'm not going to say he lost a lot of enthusiasm that night for this kind of stuff, okay? But that's the way these things will do you. You have to be prepared for stuff like that sometimes, emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. You have to be, be ready for that kind of attack. This was a spiritual attack. But that is one of the closest ones. Okay. But what really got me is I didn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
Did it read my mind, or was it an act of faith on my part? You felt that. Whatever the situation was, I came away learning something different, something new on it.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, they say that they can hear you even when you speak in your mind. I mean,
I don't know if they can read your deep inner thoughts, but I think they can sense what's on sort of the surface of the consciousness. I think they can sense that. I think they're very hypersensitive. The demonic, these evil spirits, they have a preternatural knowledge of things. That's why people used to communicate with them supposedly to learn about future events and things, which is all a bunch of bunk. They really don't know the future, but they can get you to believe that. Okay.
Right.
That's part of their little deal they play on people. But they do have some knowledge of things. They are incredibly old. Yeah. Now, I did a show the other day on this about the difference between dark angels, fallen angels, and demons. They're two different things. A lot of people get this mixed up. They think that demons are fallen angels. No, they're not. They're just a whole other breed there. They're completely different. They are the output of the Nephilim. That's what the Nephilim are. When they die, their spirits remain on earth as evil spirits. That's what you're dealing with. They are a lower caste entities of spiritual energy. The higher class are definitely the dark angels. Some of them are princes of hell, as we call them. I can give you a lot of their different names. I don't like to call their names. That's one thing demonologists don't like to do. We don't like to call the names of demons because it gets their attention. Okay?
Right.
And we definitely don't want these guys to come see us.
No.
But these are very powerful entities. The angels are the dark angels are very powerful entities. Let me illustrate a point for you. In Scripture, there is a story of one of the angel of God going into the camp of the Assyrians. And in one night, one angel killed over 180,000 men. One angel. Think about that. That's almost 250,000 people. Okay.
It's a lot.
That's the power of the holy angels. Now, the dark angels they don't have that power anymore, but they still very powerful in many ways. But here's the interesting thing I find about the dark angels. They are more interested in sitting on the boards of corporations and in military positions and in schools and churches and in media and politics. They're all involved in that because they are the movers and shakers of the spirit world, the evil spirit world.
Right.
The demons are sort of like nurses' aides. They do all the heavy lifting. Well, guys, okay. That's the way to look at it. So it is a demonic network, per se. It is an evil network that exists in this world. But until you understand exactly what you're dealing with here, but that is why a lot of this so-called witches that people talk about have familiar spirits. That's why you hear that term, familiar spirits. That means that's a demon buddy.
Oh,
A demon buddy.
They got working for them.
I
we
don't
don't
want
have
that.
demon buddies.
No demon buddies. No thanks. I'm good.
You know, I had a problem at one particular point in time. You know, I see things, I can communicate, but I've always said the one thing that has never shown itself to me is my mother. But when she was around, I could smell her body perfume, okay, and I could feel her. Well, I would get into these things where I had these little breakdowns where I would just sit and cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. Everything is so bad. I don't understand. And I actually had a psychic one time tell me, Brenda, was your mother young when she passed away? And I said, yes, she was. She was 47. She missed out on a lot in my life, my daughter's life, everything. Mm-hmm. And she said, I really think that your mother has a lot of sorrow and she is actually giving that to you. And you need to tell her to stop. The next time you feel her, you smell her, you need to tell her she is not allowed to put herself in me. She's not allowed to give me that. And you know, I did that, Dennis, and it never happened again. And it kept happening. And I told my mother, I forgive you for not being here. I forgive you for not going through all this stuff. It's okay. And I never had that problem again, ever after that. Not once.
Actually, you know, I had a very similar thing happen with my mother when she passed away many years ago. I actually smelled her perfume a couple of times, many years after she had passed. And let me say this about that. Sometimes we can call these visitation apparitions. I think sometimes God allows us to have these things happen to comfort us in a way. You know, I can tell you several stories to deal with that. But here's another thing, those you got to look at. It is a well-known fact that certain memories are associated with smell. And when you remember something, sometimes you remember it so vividly, you can almost smell it. Something, you know, connected to that. And that is sort of a little bit of a mind trick that the mind plays on us. You know, it's just like when you think about the movie theater, you smell popcorn in your mind, you know.
Right.
You associate that smell so much with what you're thinking about that the mind can do that. And, you know, we've talked about that with pareidolia with people, and some people will just absolutely argue with you till doomsday on this. But they are seeing things that they want to see sometimes, not necessarily what may not be really there. You understand? Because that's the way the mind works. The mind and the eye coordinate together. And the human mind, is always looking for patterns and pictures. And that's just the way it works. And it can find these things sometimes in patterns. And in, I've had people come up to me, oh, that's a dog man manifesting in the bushes over there. Can't you see that? I said, no, I see bushes, But that's what they're wanting to see so badly that they're making it, part of their reality in a way. But that's not good to fool ourselves like that. I've been in that situation looking down dark hallways, during investigations and stuff. You see something moving down there. And I've told people a lot of times, you need to change your perspective. You need to look and find it different. And if it's still doing it, then you need to investigate that.
Right.
If it stops, then that's your mind playing tricks on you, with your eyes in the dark and the shadows and all that. But that's like that thing that attacked me. That was undoubtedly something there.
Right.
The eyes, I could see the eyes. I could feel the reaction of what it was doing to me. Sometimes it's right in your face, but that's the way the demonic works. So sometimes it's very ambiguous. It doesn't put its hand on you. It gets you it wants you to doubt, that it. And, I forget what preacher it was that said that many years ago. The power of the devil is that no one will believe in him.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's where he gets you. You're not careful. That's where you get you. A lot of people say, I had a girl tell me one time, we were going in a house, and I said, there's been some very bad demonic infestation type stuff going on here. She said, I don't believe in demons. I said, yeah, well, that's good. They believe in you.
Right?
They're there. Right there.
Yeah, no, I know. My daughter does that. My daughter always says, well, Mom, and college really screwed her up. I don't believe in Satan. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in... But when things go wrong, she's like, who did I make mad? And I just think to myself, should I just tell her God? Because he's doing this stuff in your life because you need to acknowledge. And she doesn't. And I don't even know where she gets it. So the only thing I do is I just keep praying for them. That is what I have to do, and I pray every day that something will just enlighten her one day to make her understand he's there. He's real. Satan is there. Satan is real. And he is on this earth spreading his little nasty seeds everywhere. And I just don't know what more to do to try to get that through to her. And anytime I try to talk about it, she cuts me off and doesn't want to hear it. So I just have to let her do her thing until she figures it out, and just keep praying for her. That's the only thing I can do. My hands are tied. So, I could throw something at her if she lived in the same state, but that I don't think would accomplish much. So, but yeah.
As a minister, I can tell you this. I have met other ministers that have actually said, I don't believe in a personal devil. I do, because I've met some of these guys, okay, and I know they work for him. I know that they're all connected. But some people don't want to believe that because it's a little too negative to them, but it's very much like the old ostrich sticking his head in the sand kind of thing. When you do that, your butt's sticking up and waiting to get hit. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got to be very careful about that stuff. But, here's the funny thing about it. When something goes wrong, badly wrong, we don't ever usually blame Satan. We blame God most of the time for it. Why'd you do that, God? Well, why you got it in for me, God? God has nothing to do with it,
Right.
But he gets the blame for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Probably should be blaming the devil because he's probably behind a lot of that stuff. But he gets a free ride on that. But anyway, I think without a doubt, how could you live in this world 24 hours without not realizing that there is a definite evil here that goes beyond human evil?
Yep.
You must have. I have
And-
looked to the eyes of serial killers.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back was something that wasn't human. You know what I'm saying? It was like looking at the eye of a shark. You know, it has no, just dark, dead, and no emotion. You know, no soul there. And so, without a doubt, that is evil. And I have actually seen it. You know, the eyes truly are the windows of the soul. They really are.
Yes.
I have seen eyes go black. And I'm not talking about the whole eye. I'm talking about the pupil go black. You know, and it had nothing to do with drugs or anything like that. But I actually had a case when I was in law enforcement of a woman that actually clawed her own eyes out
Oh,
Gosh.
well,
because she
geez.
was involved with drugs and cults and all this other stuff. She actually did that. That's what these forces can do to you. So you need to not. I'm not saying you need to be afraid of them. No, no, no. You don't want to play that game because they use fear as a weapon. That's their number one weapon. But you need to respect it, just like you would respect a rattlesnake. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what a rattlesnake can do to you, so don't try to give him, a kiss on the mouth. You know what's going to happen.
They don't like taunting.
You need to respect
taunted.
what these animals can do to you.
Yep.
It's like all those stupid people you see trying to get their picture put with a buffalo,
Yeah.
or a bear or something.
Oh gosh.
You're really asking for trouble. But
Yes.
you need to respect what these things can do to you. Okay. And that is another thing, people talk about the fear of God. Fear of God is not like trembling in your boots kind of fear. Although that's a little bit of it. Mainly what it's talking about is respect.
Yeah.
You respect God because he can destroy you if you wanted to. We need to respect our enemies, but we don't need to fear them.
Right.
Yeah. But that's what the demonic does. It uses that as a weapon and a tool to create the negativity that it exists on. It's like a demonic perpetual emotion machine. The more you feed it, the stronger it becomes.
Yep.
And so we have to be very careful with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen somebody that had that their eyes started to change black. It was like kind of like from the bottom up, going up. Yeah, and they got really dark. So I haven't heard anybody else. I've told people about it, and they're like, "What was that?" And I'm like, "I think they have a demon inside of them."
But if you got enough darkness in you, it's got to show up somewhere.
It did. I mean, I was just, and then when they didn't want to talk, they'd have a baseball cap on. They'd hide their eyes, and they were out. And then they'd look up, and someone I knew.
Yep.
Oh yeah, actually, I had an experience one time when we talk about reptilians. We mention them a lot, and that is what the true form of the demonic is now. The fallen angels themselves. That's what they truly look like now. That's what they've become. They've lost their holiness. They've lost their light. They've gone into darkness. They look like snakes, by the way. Okay, look like snakes walking around. Anyway, I shook hands with a guy one time, and that's why I warn people to be very careful who and what things you touch. Okay, but this guy, men expect. You know how men do? They walk up, they shake hands when they meet somebody. Well, I learned a lesson from this the hard way. I always tell people, listen to me. I always usually learn the hard way. Okay. So I take it for you. I take the bullet for you. Okay. Anyway, I shook hands with this guy. He worked for Raytheon. You've heard of Raytheon?
Yes.
It's a big government company that makes bombs and all that.
Yeah.
Just introduced me to the guy. I never seen him before or since. And I shook hands with him. I felt something odd. I looked down, and I'm not shaking hands with a human. It is scaly, dark green, scaly looking hand. And it's got, instead of fingernails, like black claws. And I can feel this, and it's dry. You ever pick up a snake? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I have.
Like.
Yes.
And I look down, and I look back up at him, and he's like, you can see that. He had like a surprise look on his face. I guess I had one too. I guess I had that look on my face too. I go, and he broke hand contact and walked off very quickly. Never saw him again. And I'm standing there going, did I just see that?
Yeah.
You know? And I kind of got the fallout from that. I mean, like I had bad dreams after that. I had a real bad funky feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I learned a lesson the hard way. Be careful who and what you touch or let touch you.
You know, I think that's where I developed that from. I don't, if it's not somebody that I strictly know and know that they're okay, I don't want anybody touching me. I don't want to be touched. And I used to be such a social butterfly that now it's like, stay out of my bubble. That's always the way I want it. Stay out of my bubble.
Well, I warn people about that, Brandon. Matter of fact, I tell them about that. That is something built in. That's a safeguard built into us, by the way. That personal space. I call it sort of a spiritual shield, around us. And even animals have this, by the way. Animals have it too. It is something our Creator has built into us, and we need to understand it, and we need to respect it too. We need to understand how it works. But when you get that feeling, that somebody has intruded on that, it's like I've told this about other people that say they get telepathic messages and all that. Be very, very careful with that, because it is a very private intrusion into your mind and into your body. And a lot of things that are out there can draw energy off of you or send you bad energy by touching you. It can go both ways, and you have to be very careful about that. But I think just like that thing with the handshake and sometimes with the eyes, I think they have, I like to call it the glamour. Like, fairies supposedly have glamour. Yep. Vampires have a glamour. They can make you see what they want you to see. But once in a while, it slips. I think it's hard to maintain. It slips, and then you see what's really there. And that can be rather strange incident, definitely.
Yeah. I had a neighbor that I knew. He moved, really tall guy, older, in his 60s. I was talking to him. We were outside. He had I think he had blue eyes, blue or green, but I swear his eyes shifted to the reptile slit eyes for a few seconds. I just looked up and I went, oh, that's nice. Kind of stepped back.
Yeah.
And then I told his roommate, who was my friend, and he's like, I believe you. I really do. They weren't roommates anymore and they separated. But yeah, there was a lot of things going on from my friend, from this person that he lived with.
Well, actually, one time I actually saw, and this was during an exorcism, this guy had a wolf spirit in him. And he began to change right there in front of me. I'm talking about his whole facial expression, appearance began to change into that of something very animalistic. Okay, put it that way. I mean, the teeth, the gums drew up, like the lips went up. The nose began to change. It wasn't like, I'm gonna say, like a Hollywood kind of a thing, but it was very dramatic in how it was starting. I don't know how far it would have went had it not been stopped. Okay, I can put it that way. But even the eyes weren't even human anymore. They looked like the eyes of a canine or something like that. I mean, it's very weird to see something like that right in front of you. And but I have seen some very interesting things like that happen in exorcisms. I've seen people get on the floor and crawl around like snakes, sticking their tongue out like snakes. People who cough up razor blades and screws that they've swallowed. I mean, there's a long list of stuff that I've seen like that, but it's freaky whenever you see it. But it's amazing what people can do to the human body. And then amazing how much it'll take. Really, it is. But these things, when they take over you and take control of you, the change is from within outward. And it's never good. It's never something good that you want to do. Nothing like that. But it can be very dramatic in many ways. Like I say, it's not Hollywood, like the howling and all that. But but it's very close to it. You could see, I could see where people would say, "Hey, you know, it looks like a werewolf," you know, or that looks like something. But here's the interesting thing, you know, as a kid, I was a monster kid. I love monster movies. Watched them from day one. I guess since I was in diapers, you know.
Me too.
Yeah, you too. I
Yep.
love monster movies. You know, my teachers used to get on to me when I was a kid. How do you watch that stuff? But deep down inside, part of me knew it was not real. You know. But the freaky thing was, I grew up to find out that monsters really are real.
Yep.
Sometimes they're us. You know, that's the way that goes. But the demonic, when you get into that and the study of this dark witchcraft and satanic stuff that they do, that is part of what they move. They become vampires. They can become werewolves. They can turn into big black cats. The list goes on and on. This is real stuff. This is not made up. This is the power of the demonic and evil that they hook, the darkness that they hook up with. But there is a price for it, and the price is your soul and your humanity. And I was telling somebody this the other day. The more a werewolf changes, now I'm not talking about the curse of the werewolf. So somebody under that can't help what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But a werewolf instigates that change because he's a dark witch. Okay? He can do this. But every time they change back to human, it gets a little harder and harder and harder to do it because slowly, little bit by little bit, they are losing their humanity. And once you lose your humanity, guess what else is gone? Your soul.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So, what is one of the strangest things that you have ever run across?
Yeah, that's a long list. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to figure out one that. Well, let me see. I think there was
One of the first ones, maybe.
There was one case I call it the case of the witch's remains, and what it was. This guy come to me. He was a male nurse, matter of fact. He worked in the ER at the hospital near where I worked at. I worked at the hospital for about 30 years. And he was a real macho kind of guy. Drove a motorcycle, smoked cigars. He was, for a male nurse, he was kind of, you wouldn't think that about male nurses. But anyway, he had been married to a witch. And he didn't know she was a witch. She was what I call a closet witch, okay?
Right.
And, she had been studying witchcraft for quite a while because when she what she did, I think she was at a party one night and she probably had a little bit too much to drink and decided to swim to an island in the lake there. Okay, it's a lake near where I live, and she didn't make it. And they got her. They found her body next day. And when she passed away, he loved her very much. They had pictures of her all over the house. Even had a picture of her on his computer. And they had two little kids. I think it was two little boys. And it was very tragic, And he had come to me and found out. He said, "There's something in the house." He lived in a little ranch house, like. And he said that here's the pitiful part about it. He said, "Look," I haven't been able to, since my wife died about 3 or 4 months ago. I haven't been able to sleep in this bed, in my bedroom, because there's something in that corner over there. Is what he said. He pointed to the corner. Something in that corner will not let me sleep in this room. There's something standing in that corner, watching me from that corner. Now, in that corner was also a walk-in closet. Okay. Don't forget that. I'm gonna come back to that.
I know the walk-in closets.
Well, anyway, he said I found all these books in her closet, and they're witchcraft books. I mean, hardcore witchcraft books. Okay, and she had probably here's what I took away from this. She had probably made some deals somehow or other. Okay, and she had probably some type of familiar spirits around her. That's what instigated all this stuff. So I said, "Okay, I'm going to check your bedroom out." He said there was all kind of weird paranormal stuff going on in this house. Shoes walking down the hall by themselves, taps being turned on, doors that were locked being found open. The list goes on and on. And while I was there, I was sitting in the garage. It was closed in garage, and it had no air in it. You know what I mean? It didn't have any, air conditioning or anything. And I'm sitting in there, and this was summertime. It was probably about 80, maybe 90 degrees in that garage. And I'm sitting in there, and here, honest to God, I got a K2 meter with me, and my favorite one, which is the tri-fill meter. And I'm sitting there, and I can feel something walking up towards me, something coming towards me, because I can feel this cold spot. And I'm looking at my and looking at my thermometer, and it starts going down. It was 90, and it goes down to about like 80.
Wow.
And I can like put my hand in this cold spot in front of me. And there's no reason for the cold spot to be there. Like I said, there was no air flowing in this. No doors were open. There were no windows. There was no windows in this garage. And I could put my hand in that thing, So I knew there was definitely something in this place. Okay. So anyway, I go into his bedroom, and I got the tri-fill meter, and I'm going around, checking. And the meter starts clicking up a little bit as I get closer to the closet. And I go in the closet, and it really starts going up. And I think, well, God, maybe there's, a junction box in there, it's where the meters or whatever it is in there. There's some kind of junction box or something that makes the meter go up. But no, there's nothing like that in there. I even go out of the closet. I go around into the living room behind the closet. There's not even a plug-in back there. Okay. There's no reason for this tri-meter to be going up like this. So I go back in the closet, and I start moving around, and it really starts cooking up. And I look on the shelf. There's a box on the shelf. So I hold it up to the box, and boy, it really goes up in, And I said, oh, there's something in this box here. Okay, so I go back and I asked the guy. He was very nervous, he was on the edge, and I didn't. You always, have your client's best interest at heart. You don't want to scare people. You don't want to freak them out. So I just, kind of off the cuff, I just said, by the way, what's in that wooden box on the shelf in the closet there? He said, oh, that's my wife's ashes.
Oh. Oh. Yeah.
I said, oh, okay. All right. So I go back, and I tell one of the girls with me, and I said, look, would you, call a funeral home and tell me what's in, the box with human ashes in it? Is there anything in there that should be magnetic, or is there any kind of metal in it? What? Well, she called the next day and gets back and knows it's nothing but ashes in there. There's no reason why this meter should be doing that. So I go back in there the next day. I don't say anything to him because I don't want to give him upset. I go back in there, and it does the same thing again. I even took a girl with me in there. I said, look at this. Am I seeing this? She said, yeah, it clicks up on this box and nowhere else. And there's not a light fixture over there. There's nothing. There's no reason why I should be doing this. So I go back, and I set the guy down. I said, look, I'm going to have a little talk with you, okay? I said, first of all, we're going to burn those books, okay? We're going to take them out to your grill out here in the back. We're going to burn them, okay? And he said, that's fine with me. I don't want them in my house. I said, okay, we're going to burn the books because there might be an influence over the books,
Yes.
And I said, and I know you loved your wife. I know you miss her, okay? But you got to turn her loose.
Yes.
You got to turn her loose. Let her go, Let her go. I said, you're going to always have the memory of her. You're going to have that. But it's time for you to turn loose, And that's part of the grieving thing,
Right.
I counsel him on this. I talked to him about it. And I say, and by the way, you need to put your wife's ashes to rest. And I said, you can do that in cemeteries. There are places where they have repositories for ashes and stuff. And he said, I'll do that. I'll do that. I said, when you do that, call me back. We'll cleanse this house for you. Okay. And I said, I guarantee you'll have no more problem. So he did all that. He requested that. I said, I even told him to take down a few of the pictures because it was almost as if he were maintaining her presence there too. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I had that feeling there was a connection with that. Well, even he took down, she was a beautiful woman. He had one portrait he left up in the bedroom. But I said, that's okay. But, you don't need so many pictures around. Just, have a memory, that's fine. He did all of that. We cleansed the house and all that. 2 months later, he called me back. Nothing happening. I said, I've slept in my bedroom tonight for the first time in months, and nothing. There's nothing in that corner anymore. And here was my conclusion on that. She had made contact with certain demonic entities
Hmm.
that were around her when she died. And I have found out that sometimes even death will not free you from demonic influence. Okay.
Right.
And I think that was what was going on with that. And once he put her ashes to rest, that was the end of it. But that was a very freaky case. The case of the witches remains.
I can see that, how he loved her so much from keeping her energy, his attachment to her, all the stuff that he had around the house too. And
Absolutely. Sometimes there can be more than one key to a case. There'll be several things, several factors going on. And you have to look at everything from as many angles as you possibly can when you come up with stuff like that. But I have had other people tell me things have happened with people's ashes. So it's really, I don't think, a good idea you need to either scatter them or put them to rest somewhere. I don't think it's sometimes a good idea. I mean, that's up to individuals. I'm not telling people what to do, but I would not feel good about it. You know,
I I've been thinking a lot about that lately because I have my mom's ashes. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I don't know what brought it up, but when my mother first passed away, my brother took her ashes to Tennessee. And he was with some girl, and they got into an argument, and she had him arrested. She took all his stuff and put it in storage. So my mom sat in storage for approximately 4 years. And then my uncle got her back. And I had made a trip to California, and my uncle says, Brenda, do you want your mom's ashes? And I said, yeah, I'll take them. And he said, good, because he also had his other brother's ashes. And he said, in the middle of the night, the two of them just argue with each other all night long. And I can't deal with it anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, let me take my mom. Well, I was thinking about taking her somewhere down to a river or something and, saying a prayer and letting her ashes go out. I haven't done it as of yet because, well, I'm supposed to get a new wheelchair where I can actually go down by the river and not get stuck on the grass or in the dirt. So,
Yeah.
but I have been thinking about doing that with her.
Well, it would be good if you could go to a dock, with your wheelchair. You could get on the dock pretty good, but.
I think there is one place where there is a dock I might be able to get to.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
That
have
would
to
be
go
good.
check.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be good. I'll actually threaten to have myself cremated and my ashes scattered over Walmart. That way, people would come to see me once in a while.
There you go.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
And my daughter has her dad's ashes, and she's always said, well, Mom, when you pass away, I'll get yours and grandma's. And I'm like, I don't know if you want to do that, Trisha, because your grandma really didn't like your dad. That might not be a good combination. So, but I've thought about doing that. And then just because she's in this beautiful oak box, because she passed away in Arizona, and it's hand sketched. It's got in the front of it, it's got like cactuses and mountains and just a really pretty desert scene. So I thought, well, if I go ahead and I put her ashes out, I can keep the box as a keepsake. It's beautiful and heavy, and but I have to. The way it's put together is there's screws on the bottom of the box that there's a box inside the lid.
Oh yeah.
So there's screws down there. I have to pull those out to be able to pull the lid up. Now it's never been done. That is one thing that I have been not wanting to do, just in case I run across a tooth or I run across anything like that. I've just kind of been hesitant, but I know that it's something I want to do. I just have to find. I was thinking maybe because there's a place down by Susie's where there's a creek and a lake. And I thought about maybe taking my mom out to Susie's and her and I going out there and, you know, saying a prayer and letting my mom go out into the water, because I can get to that part where Susie's at. So I thought about doing this, but she's had so much going on and I've had so much going on that we haven't really sat down and talked about it. So, but I would love to do that because I plan on moving out that way anyways. So I think that it would just be nice, you know.
I saw a movie the other day. It was a pretty good movie. I watched it. Nicolas Cage. I actually met him one time, by the way. He's a very nice guy. And Nicolas Cage starred in this movie called The Humanity Bureau. And what it was about, if you got to a certain point in life where you were no longer viable tax-wise, they would send you off to a place called New Eden. And watching the movie, you find out in the end that New Eden is actually a crematorium. You don't come back from that, definitely. And that's kind of remind me of the movie Soylent Green. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I've heard about that.
Soylent Green is people, the Soylent Green Company feeding the world one person at a time.
Oh, it's time for Kiki to make an appearance. Hello, Kiki. How are you today? She does this when we get on the show around this time. She's like, got us to come and say hi.
She looks for food on the
I can't
table.
say hey.
Yeah, she has to make her general appearance on the show. Kiki likes it.
All right. My dog used to do that. He would bark, though. Usually in the background, you would hear him. But I miss that. I miss that guy. I had him for about 15 years.
Oh.
And he and I did a lot of investigations and stuff together. And I will forget one night we were investigating inside a museum. And that dog would follow me anywhere. I mean, he would go wherever I went, he would go. And I was walking him through this museum, and we got close to this real freaky thing. Got close to walking over towards a desk that was sitting there. And he wouldn't go around it. He kept, he was pulling away from it. He would not let me go over to that desk, And I thought that was very odd. He didn't usually do that, stuff like that. I mean, he was very straightforward with stuff. So later on, I asked the curator of the museum, I said, what's the story on that desk? He said, that was belonged to this woman. She was the one that created this museum. Funny thing is, her ghost has been seen by that desk.
Oh.
And your dog.
I think I got confirmation on that.
Yeah, your dog's like, oh, hey, there's somebody sitting there. I don't want to go over there. Yeah.
Maybe he could see somebody I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, if anybody is interested in border collie puppies, get a hold of Susie. She has 3 pure white ones, 2 females, 1 male. And she has 2 red and white ones, 1 female, 1 male. So just if you're looking for a dog and you're somewhere where it can be shipped short there, or you're willing to take a ride to Texas, she has them.
I'll be in a situation. I have some back problems and all going on right now, so there's no way I could take care of another animal right now. I'm good enough to take care of myself. But you have to take them out and walk them and all, so it wouldn't be good for the dog, for me around anyway. But maybe once, I get that straightened out, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they need a yard. When they're younger, they just need yards running, but
big yard and fence.
Yeah, and the good thing about border collies is they're actually extremely smart. So they learn at a young age.
I had a German Shepherd one time.
Oh yeah, those 2.
His name was Zeus, by the way. I really should have named him Houdini. He was an expert at escaping. That dog. I mean, it was a big old German Shepherd. He was a washout of the police canine thing, but he was a really smart dog. I finally had to give him to someone that had a big farm, because my yard was kind of small, and he was always climbing over the fence. He could climb better than a monkey. That dog
Yeah.
did. He could
Wow.
do it, but as big as he was a big old German Shepherd. He could climb
Yep.
better than I could, definitely.
I had one. His mother used to be the #1 canine in Austin, and he was huge. And I had this entertainment center up against this wall where my living room window was, and there
Mhm.
wasn't but this much space in between it. Well, one day I left and I came home. He had crawled in between there and opened the window and was in the front yard when I got there, just sitting there. The mailman was in his car, would not get out to go deliver the mail because he's seen the size of the dog. And I'm like, he wouldn't hurt you. He'd have came up to you and expected you to give him a treat, you know? But yeah, they're crafty. I'm telling you. They are.
Well,
So,
that dog was like a prisoner of war. He felt it was his duty to escape.
yeah.
It sounds
He
like
was
a
good.
shepherd
One time
thing.
I put him, I made a kennel for him, and honest to gosh, that kennel was about 10 foot high, and it had fencing on it, and there was maybe like a foot space in there. And he climbed that thing and got out. I still to this day do not know how that dog got out of the kennel. I don't know how. It was amazing.
With
Without
me,
killing himself, definitely he would have
yeah.
got hurt. I would have. Done
With
that.
me
But,
being in this chair, I had to abandon the big dog thing because I love big dogs. I've had a Saint Bernard, Great Danes, but they're too hard for me to deal with being in this chair. So I traded them in for smaller dogs. I've got my
Mhm.
not so bright Yorkie, and then I have my long haired Chihuahua who is
Well, this
very
dog had a
intelligent.
quirk. I don't know if you've ever seen one do this, but this dog would dig a hole. I mean, big enough, and he would get down in the hole, lay there.
Yeah.
Gosh.
This is not what-
Yeah.
and even if it was your flower bed, it didn't matter. He would dig a hole.
It's a way to keep cool. They dig in the ground. I know when we
Mhm.
moved in here, the landlord told us that the people who lived here had very large dogs, and two of them were pits, and the other one was a German Shepherd. Well, outside the bedroom window in here, there was a hole. I swear was dug completely to China. This thing was so big. We had to hire people to come and fill that hole. It was so big. And I thought to myself, how did these people not know that these dogs were getting I mean, it went under the foundation and kept going. And I thought, wow, they were just building their own little tunnel. I don't know where they were going, but it was
Escaping.
humongous. Oh, it was
Escape tunnels, by the
humongous.
way.
Escape tunnels.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Escape tunnels.
They saw Shawshank Redemption too many times. They're like,
They're out of here.
But over the years, I was going to mention, I've done a little vampire hunting over the years. I've told you a few times. Matter of fact, I'm writing a book right now. It's called Paracryptidology, Hunting Monsters and Things of Nightmare. And there's one section in it called, I think it's chapter 7, Vampires I Have Known. But I was going to tell you a quick story about that since we're talking about some of the scariest, freakiest things. I got a call from my mother one time, and she had, I think he was about 5 years old. The little boy was about 4 or 5 years old, and he was going to a preschool thing at a church there. And the church was situated right next to a churchyard, a graveyard. They had connected to it. And she told me a little bit about his history. She said that they didn't let him watch scary stuff. They were very, very strict on what they let him see, and like he was like watching Teletubbies or whatever. That was the only thing he got to watch. So he wasn't exposed to anything like that. And she said, but he had been telling her something that was really bothering her. And he said that he would come home and tell her about a little boy that was meet him in the graveyard. And he would go over and wait for his mother next to the cemetery. And there was like a fence around it, a wrought iron fence. And he would stand there at the wall waiting on his mother. with the rest of the kids. They'd line them up there, you know. And he said that this boy was on the other side of the fence. And he told the boy's name was like Caleb or something like that. And he said that this is what bothered his mother. She thought it was just, you know, like a imaginary friend kind of thing. But he said that this little boy was red all over. He had red all over. And he kept wanting to go home with this little boy. He said, "I want to go home with you. We can play. We'll be good friends. I can live in your room with you." And he said, "And you can be red like me."
Oh,
Oh no. No.
And said, "This is what really bothered his mother, you know." So I talked to the little boy. You know, I got him and I said, "I wanted to talk to you about your friend Caleb, you know. And would you tell me what he looks like?" You know, and he said, "Well, he's a little boy like me, and he's got red all over him." And I said, "Well, what do you mean red? Has he got red clothes on?" He said, "No, it's like he's something red spilled on him, all over him." And this first sounds very much like blood. Okay, that's
Yep.
what got me concerned about it. And he says, "Caleb wants to come home with me and live with me, and wants me to be red like him."
Nope.
And this did not sound good to me at all. And I said,
Right.
okay, we need to do something about that, definitely. So I tell the little boy, I said, "Look, you know, Caleb's not your friend, and Caleb definitely does not need to go home with you. And you don't want to be red like Caleb, okay? You don't want to be red like him. Matter of fact, you don't need to talk to Caleb anymore because he's not a good boy, and you don't need to talk to him. So when he comes up to the fence, don't just make out like he's not there, and don't talk to him, and certainly don't let him follow you home, you know, and all that." And the reason I say this is sort of like a vampire kind of thing, because this thing kept talking about being red like me, you know. And I went in and investigated that cemetery. I looked at every grave in there. There was nobody named Caleb, by the way, but I could find in there. But that doesn't mean anything. It can use different names and all that. But what was very interesting, this Caleb had told him one other thing that was very discerning to me. And he said that he did not like the daytime. He wanted to, you know, to live with this boy at night and be red like him and stuff. So that sounded very much like kind of like vampire type activity going
Right.
on with that. But after I had to talk to the little boy, he said he would not talk to Caleb anymore, and that pretty well solved the problem on that. But it was either demonic or vampiric or both in its attributes to this little boy. I'm just glad I didn't follow. He didn't allow it to go home with him. That might have made matters worse. But that was very interesting. Vampires are real, and people do not realize this, and they can approach you in many different ways. And there are many different kinds of vampires. There are energy vampires. There are vampires that live off of the essence of your life, soul, or whatever. They live off of that. They take that energy from you in certain ways. Even though they're, again, like we were talking about, people touching you, they can do that by just simply touching you. And there are even some vampires that prey upon you in your dreams.
Yep.
And I've run into some of those like that as well. So they can approach you in many different ways. But they're always like, or here's the thing about the number one thing about vampires, they're very parasitic. They live off of you. They dwell off of either your energy, your blood, or whatever the situation is, your life force. They live off of that. And they're very much like the same classification of ticks and mosquitoes and leeches. They do the same thing, but they do it in spiritual aspect of it. But that was very freaky. That I never had anybody approach a child like that. That was very interesting. But I've done a good bit of vampire hunting over the years, and they can approach you from different ways. And one more quick story I can tell you about is one of the freakiest ones that I ran into. You know, we were talking about people arguing, be mean to each other and all that. This girl called me one day, said she'd seen me on television, I think, or something, and she wanted to talk to me about a problem she was having. And the problem was, she said that my mother and I, we never got along. My mother was a very malevolent person. She very hateful, controlling, manipulative person. Said she just there was no love in her really. It was all about narcissistic being me kind of thing, and all. She's a very controlling person. And so her mother got cancer. She and her mother never got along. Her mother got cancer, and she wanted to live with her the last few days she had left. And said it still didn't change her. Made her worse in some way. But her mother had one request for her. Said, if I die, I have a white satin dress I want to be buried in. It was sort of like almost like a wedding dress, but it was, I guess, something like a party dress or a cocktail dress, whatever you call it. But it was almost kind of like a wedding dress, very fancy kind of dress. Said, I want to be buried in that. That's my only request, So she said, Mother, I'll do that. I'll certainly see to that. But sure enough, when her mother passed away, she had that up. She had her buried in this dress, this white satin dress. And it said that for about everything was okay for about a week. So about a week after I buried my mother, she started coming to me in dreams at night, and said she wasn't acting like my mother. She was like trying to snuggle up to me, trying to hug me, But my mother never acted like that, in real life. She was very cold and manipulative. Said she's got that white satin dress on in my dream, and she's doing this, and she keeps coming back every night, and it's really disturbing. It said I got to the point where I don't want to go to sleep anymore, with this going on. And she said that, and then the other night, the other morning, I got up after this dream one night, and there on the floor was a piece of white satin cloth. Just like I might tear a little piece off or something. She said, I don't know what it looks like. It come off that dress. I don't know where this comes from. She said, I don't have anything like that. I don't know where it comes from. I got it around here somewhere. I kept it. She said, my mother's coming back to me. So my mother, and said, when I get up every morning from these dreams, I don't have any energy left in me. Said, I'm just drained, And said, it's got to the point where I'm getting migraines from it. It's really starting to affect my health. And I said, well, this does not sound good at all. And she said, do you think my mother's a vampire? And I said, I don't know. It's very vampiric-like, thing going on here. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do for you. She told me where the mother was buried. The mother was buried in a mausoleum. And I said, I'll, no pun intended, I'll stake out this mausoleum, okay? And I will watch it for the next 7 nights. So according to the legend, a vampire, after 7 days, will rise, from the grave. Yeah. Anyway, I said, I'll watch it out for 7 nights. That should tell the story. So for 7 long, lonely nights all alone out in the cemetery, I watched this mausoleum for any kind of signs of anything moving around. One night, by the way, I see something white out among the tombs walking around the tombstone. So I go out there and investigate. It's a great big white dog. And it's very strange. Usually I'm a very animal person, okay? Dogs and animals come up to me. And this dog did not do that. It just sat there and stared at me. It was a very freaky incident. I said, maybe it was a vampire dog. I don't know. But anyway, it was very strange. Whether that's connected or not, it was just something that happened. But 7 long nights passed and nothing happened. So I went back and I told the woman, I didn't see any movements, didn't see any activity. She said, well, she's still coming to me in my dream. It's getting worse. She said, it's really taking a toll on me. I said, well, there's one more thing I'll do if I have your permission. She said, I don't care what it is, you do it. So I went back to the mausoleum, and with some blessed chalk, I made a cross on it. I anointed it with holy water, and I spoke to the woman. I say, look, you have no place left on this world. There's no place left here for you. You need to go on. Okay? There's nothing left here to tie you. There's nothing left here to connect you to anything here. You need to go on and don't bother people anymore. You need to go on to where you need to go. Okay? I talked to it, did all this to it. Went back. I didn't tell the girl what I did. The girl called me about a week later and said, "What did you do?" My mother not come back anymore since I talked to you that day. I said, "Well, that's good," because I told her what I did. I said, and that, hopefully your mother now will be at rest.
Wow.
So was she like an energy vampire, her mom? Like sucking all her energy out while she's sleeping or something?
Well, they supposedly a lot of spiritual attacks take place during sleep.
Yeah.
Whether they be vampires or whatever the situation. That happens a lot because you're very vulnerable in a state of sleep. You're almost like very close to death in many aspects. Your heart slows down, your brain activity is slowing down a lot. You're very close, you're very vulnerable. So I have been attacked a good many times in my sleep by certain entities like this. It happens. They're not. It may not be horrific, gory, bloodletting nightmares or anything like that, but it can be subtle sometimes in the way that they carry these things out against you. But some of these entities know how to get you when you're at your lowest, especially if you're having physical problems or emotional problems or anything. You're weak. If you're weak at a certain point, that's where they will attack. They're just like sharks after blood.
Yeah.
Respect. Yeah. So you have to, if you know you're not feeling good, or if you're depressed, or whatever the situation is, and we all get that way sooner or later. We're just human beings. We do these things happen to us. We need to understand that when these things happen, we need to be on guard and strengthen ourselves and be very watchful, because we know we're ebbing low, like low tide. We need to be careful and understand that these things are watching us. And let me say one more thing. Something is always watching and listening, no matter what it may be. So keep your plans and your business to yourself as much as possible. Don't let them know what you're going to do. Okay, don't walk down the hall saying, "Well, I think I'm going to Walmart today." Don't tell anybody that. Okay, just do it. Okay, that keeps your enemy off guard. It keeps him off kilter, and that's good. That's always a good thing. Even Jesus in the Bible said that. Don't let your plans be made known. Not let the right hand know what the left hand's doing.
I
That's a
think,
good way to do, because there's something always listening.
yeah. And they must really have a good time with me because I'm so sporadic, it isn't even funny. I just be sitting here and then all of a sudden jump up and say, "Hey, it's time to go to the store."
Keep them guessing. Yeah.
Right. So, everybody, I want to tell you, I've already started my collection of Dennis's books. So, Dennis can tell you where you can find all his books and how to contact him if you need anything, counseling, or whatnot.
Yeah, well, you can find my books on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Just look up the author, Dennis W. Carroll. Have to put a W in there because there's another Dennis Carroll. He's a football player, and I don't play football. Okay, but you can find me on that. And if you need to contact me for any kind of consultation services, they're all absolutely free, by the way. I don't charge. You can contact me at denniswcarroll.com. or at denniswcarroll@gmail.com if you want to send me a Gmail or email. And my shows are as follows. They're all at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have a show on Monday nights with my good friend Gerald Fountain called The Road Less Traveled. We talk about a lot of offbeat stuff. We did a great show the other night on personal poison. That was a great one. And on Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm doing Hunting the Shadows. And then Friday night, I do Paranormal Point of View. And you can find me there usually. And we do movie reviews and book reviews and stuff like that on there as well. I also have a Patreon, and there's a membership also on the Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel.
That's awesome. And I can't wait for your new book to come out. I'm already checking and getting more good reads. Good reads. I enjoy. So thank you so much, Dennis, for coming back on. We love having you on. I learned so much, and I just love to listen to some of the experiences that you've had. It's just really great.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here, and we always have some great conversations.
Yes, we do. We sure do. Did you get all that, Bree? Bree was asking if there was an email to contact you. So I told her to watch out for the end of the show because you always put it out. So it will be there. So, but all right, Dennis, we are going to go ahead and let you go. And
All
like I
right.
said, thanks again for coming on. And we'll talk again later.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
All righty, Dennis. Have a good night.
You too.
So here we are towards the end of our show. What'd you think, Sherry? You like Dennis?
Oh, I love watching. I watch his YouTube too. I found him on Jessica's channel, the Huntress, Cryptid
Huntress.
Huntress, and then he started doing his. So I do, and I did listen to the Monday night show with the other gentleman that he talked about.
Yeah.
I didn't get very far because I woke up when they were done. you know.
I love having Dennis on. He's
Oh,
he's he's a great guy.
love all his stuff. I learn a lot from him. There's different things that I don't know, and so I'll learn from him. And I do remember seeing him on TV. Like I've seen some younger, and I'm like, wait a minute, I think I used to watch it. Like that guy for ghost hunting.
That guy right there. That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his books are really are really good reads too. And I enjoy him. So I do have him on occasionally on and off. He is such a busy man. I was lucky to get him for 2 hours tonight. Last time he could only do an hour, so and that's fine too because I know how busy he is and he's writing his books and all that stuff. So, but he's a very good man, and
Oh, yeah.
I enjoy having him on here. A lot of the people that watch, well, everybody that watches the show, they enjoy Dennis. So it's really nice. And I have to. I'm trying to get my schedule straightened out again so that I can, because I used to watch his shows all the time, and it's been hard for me to really get up and do a whole lot of anything anymore. I've been having so much just going on, and I'm just trying to get everything back on a straight and narrow path. If it's not one thing blowing up, it's another. My phone, my house flooded. We've got rain for the next 5 days, and I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, I need to go to Susie's, strap her little pondu or whatever that thing is that she's got on the top of my car and borrow it so that I can cruise around the house because that's always fun when that happens.
I know.
Well, they were supposed to come and fix it last week when we had a break in the rain. And of course, they sent somebody over. I seen them outside the window and they were looking around, and that was it. They never came and they never did anything. So
we looked at it.
Time. Yeah, I do need a boat, Norma.
We checked on it.
Put pontoons on the bottom of my wheelchair instead of wheels. That might work for me. At least for a little while.
You need a boat.
Yeah, I do need a boat. It's horrible, but and I like today. I overslept today. I don't usually sleep that long. I'm up and down, but I did. I slept straight through from 7 o'clock this morning till about 2:30, 3 o'clock this afternoon. I miss Steve's live that he did, and I hate missing him. I mean, I go back and I'll listen to him later, but I hate missing the lives because I get in the chat and Jason's in there and Woo's in there and Steve is in there and we sit in there and we talk. And but I did. I missed it today, and but I've been. I don't even know what's been going on with me. I don't
think
know.
I'm that way because last night I didn't know if you were doing a show or not, and my back, it's just my spine because of this weather, the whole spine. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take something and I'm just gonna lay here for a little. I was out. I woke up at 9:15. I'm like, is Brenda doing anything or not? Last night, and I'm looking. I'm like, oh, there's nothing good.
Susie was supposed to get with a guy called William.
Yeah.
And we are going to have him on. His name is William Steele, and he was on that show, Inmate to Roommate, and he had a lot to do with Maxwell and different stuff like that. So he's very interesting. But we were supposed to get him scheduled for Friday, but Susie had such a busy day. She never got back to me with his information so that I could make the show. And it's probably a good thing because after what happened, you know, they were trying to get all that grass mowed and trees down out there at her other properties so they could get the final sale done. And then Joel got hurt. So when she called me, she was a wreck. She was talking 1,000 miles an hour. And I couldn't, I kept telling her, Susie, don't worry about it. We're not going to have a show tonight. And she, no, I did that. And I was like, Susie, okay, calm down. And she had a hectic day yesterday, and she sounded like she was just completely wiped out. So
she needed a break. She's got to take a break. You have to.
Oh, she just goes. I think that if she stops and takes a break, she's going to be lost and not know what to do. She just goes. Yeah, she goes so hard sometimes, and it's hard. It's hard to tell her, Susie, take 2 days and just relax.
I used to have a hard time with that too. But like the last year or two, I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm not missing anything out there. I'm not, whatever. It's not like I'm young and I go out to the clubs or, or anything else like that. It's like
she's at the ranch. And so every day the animals have to be fed, and that's fine. And there are things that needed to be done. Thank God she's got most of the burning stuff done for the year, so she don't have to worry about that anymore. And now she's trying to get that other property in Texarkana sold so that, she can just get off of that property and leave it alone. And so she's just been doing so much. And with Roger being hurt, and now Joel. So after Joel got hurt, she had to get up there and use the mower and do all the mowing herself. She had to, yeah, I know. And, she had to do all the mowing herself and then the cutting of the oak trees and everything else. So she was just plumb wore out. And I haven't heard anything from her today. So I think she's probably still plumb wore out.
So, I'm sure. Yeah, Norma's right with animals too. I have my dog and we have 2 cats, and I have to do the the little circus of moving the animals around. And
well, I mean, she goes and she, that's a natural thing. She's got to go out and feed the horses. She's got to go out and feed cows. The dogs.
The dogs, puppies.
She's got 20 dogs, so trust me, they don't go without food.
That's a lot of dogs. 20 dogs.
I think she might have more than that now because of the puppies.
Wow.
She's got the 2 extra puppies that she kept, and then she's got the 5 that Athena just had.
Yeah.
So she's got 2 puppies from Lily that she didn't want to get rid of. She got attached to them. So she's keeping those.
I'm just as bad. I've had one time I was called the crazy cat lady. I was out in the country and I I had my ex stopped throwing the cat out, the mom cat, before she became a mom. I wanted to get her fixed. Next thing you know, she's pregnant. And next thing you know, she's pregnant again after the first batch. Then she gets run over.
Oh no.
I had 6 baby kittens. No, I'm feeding them, nursing them and stuff. If somehow it turned out to be later on down the road, like 20 cats from babies up, I was going nuts. I'm like, just stop throwing them outside. Now they're impregnating each other. I can't handle this.
Well, Norma, the good thing with 20 dogs and dog poop is it's like fertilizer, and they just go wherever they want to on the ranch, and they go. So she doesn't have to worry about that. Unlike me, when we have to take the dog out, we have to take a bag and we got to clean it up every time. But yeah, she's got what, 276 or 78 acres.
Wow.
So those dogs have plenty of room to go poo. They don't have to do it at the house.
Right. No, I wouldn't mind that. Having that many dogs, I'd be like, go. You're not walking them.
Right.
I have to walk mine, so I can't do that. I have to walk her. So
Yeah.
we're out there all the time.
Now, I know that we were talking, I talked to Susie, and I said that we could have William on tomorrow night, but if he can't do it tomorrow night, let's schedule him for next Friday.
Yeah.
So that he can come on. And she gave me his phone number, but I got to call her because she's missing the last number. It's not a complete phone number.
Oh,
His last number.
I think I got it right. Poor Lily.
So she was trying to talk to me, send him messages telling him she was on the phone with me, and she was still running around crazy trying to do this. Just jumped out of the shower. So I didn't realize it until today. I meant to call him today, and it didn't go through. It wasn't a complete number, and I'm looking at it again, and I'm like, oh,
wait a digit.
It's the number here somewhere. So.
Well, she's had a lot. I'll put extra prayers in. Yeah, I pray for everybody and people I know and people I don't know. That's what I've always done. But when I know that they're having, like her case, so much going on, or like when Roger, I don't know the man, but when I heard about it on here, that's what I do. It's just, I've done that.
It's been rough. And I had to message my doctor the other day. I've been sleeping a lot more, but why I haven't been sleeping at night, and I don't drink a lot of caffeine. I think I have 1 cup of coffee a day, and lately it hasn't even been every day. The rest of the time I drink water. On occasions I might drink tea, but not too much. And every time I have been laying down to go to sleep, I will get heart palpitations so bad. And the dog knows, and he's not been laying in his normal spot. He's been right in the center of my chest. And I feel like I can't breathe, so I'll get up. And I'll take deep breaths and try to slow my, heart pace down. So it's, yes, Norma, she's doing a lot better. She's out there running just like everybody else. She's back to being good. But yeah, so I have to sit up so I can try to catch my breath and get my heart going back where it needs to be. So I messaged my doctor, and he says, well, we need to get you into a cardiac doctor because we just need to, I guess as we get older, there are spots in our hearts that get old because, well, you
get old. Everything gets old.
Small little spots. Yeah, you can get small little spots on your heart that can be kind of damaged or whatever they want to call it. So he wants to have mine checked. Last time they checked it, my heart was good. He turned around and laughed. He says, you got the heart of a 20-year-old. I said, wish I had the body of a 20-year-old.
Me too. Go for that one. I'll take that.
How do we do this? I used to think all the time, years and years ago, I used to think to myself, you know, if they could take my brain and put it into another body that's younger than I am, it might be cool when I get old. And now when I hear about the silly shit that they do
Right.
with your bodies and transferring conscious into, I'm like, oh no, wait, no, I'm not okay with that.
I take that back. That was just
Yeah.
no,
That
thank you.
was just stupid young thinking. That's what it was. Stupid young
We were
thinking.
learning back then. You're grown now. We know better now. We've learned a lot now. There's more things to learn about. Of like, what? That wasn't a joke. You're serious? No, thank you.
Norma, every night, honey, every night. This is full of my pills. This is full of my vitamins twice a day. Twice a day.
Wow.
And you know, it's like I hate taking medication. My doctor knows I hate taking medication, but till something better comes along, I don't have a choice, because I'm on stuff like 2 blood thinners because the way my blood runs, and I accumulate clots. I'm on 2 blood pressure medications to keep me good. I'm on cholesterol medication, but that I have a plan for. I have to. I didn't get to go to the store myself this time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little keto friendly, and I'm going to take all the carbs out of my diet, and I'm going to add just what carbs I need per day. So that will help try to get me off of the cholesterol pills.
Yeah.
So I'm yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot to figure out what's right for you, what's not. Not for people telling you, but your own body. Because I had to do that in 2012, 13, where I showed up at the doctor's and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I was 96 pounds. I'm eating everything. And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, what? Okay, you know what? So I got a line, started searching, researching for whatever, and started doing this and that to started
Well,
gaining
and
weight.
Norma's right. Norma said if they would just stop poisoning us, we would be just fine,
Right.
which is absolutely true.
Here, take this. I don't feel good. Take more. I had a doctor tell me that one time. I kid you not. After my carjacking, my accident, and I was going to community college, because I couldn't work anymore. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll go to college now. And I was going there. They gave me something, and it started making me have heart palpitations and everything. I was laying on the couch because I was like 32 or 33, and I'm like, this shouldn't be happening. I stopped taking them, and I called them up, and they said, no, your body's not used to it. You need to take more.
Yeah, no.
More. And I'm like, what do you mean take more? I can't. I have heart. You're not dead yet. Just take some more.
I know, right?
No thanks. I'm good.
That's the way they do it. You're not dead yet. Just keep taking this. I mean, the good thing about I have a good doctor. I love my doctor, so I put a little more trust in him. Now, every now and then, there are certain things he believes in that I don't, but he doesn't ever argue with me. He's like, okay, we'll do this.
Right.
Your way. Okay.
I had a really good doctor too. He passed away. I had a hard time going back because he was such a good humanitarian. He was a person and a doctor, but a person first. And so it made it great. Everybody loved him. And around here, he was just, unfortunately, died of a heart attack.
Mine is young.
Yeah.
And it was funny because a couple of years ago, I had a problem with Social Security. They killed me off. Okay.
Oh no.
Yeah, they did.
Oh my God.
What had happened was there was somebody in California that had almost the same name as me, same birth date, and our Social Security numbers were off by 1 number.
Wow,
and they had passed away. Well,
weird.
when that went into the disability computer, they crossed it with me, and they totally killed me. Okay, I mean, just done. Well, when that happens, your doctor gets notified.
Oh,
so
no.
all my appointments were canceled that I had coming up. I'm like, the hell. So I called them, and they're like, are you sure this is you? We got notice that you passed away. And I'm like, Well, I'm talking to you right now, so no, I did not. Can you please reschedule my appointment? And when I got into the office, he was like, I am so glad to see you, that you're still here. Like, oh my God.
I've never heard of such a thing. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry
Look, for 2 weeks, I had to carry around a note from SSI. That way, if I got pulled over, because, you know, it goes through your driver's license, everything, that I am who I am. That
I'm alive.
There was a mistake in the Social Security system. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was horrible. I was like, God, what am I supposed to do? I'm dead. Then they had to get my check back to me because they put my check in the bank. Well, most of the time I take my money out of the bank.
Right.
I don't leave it in there. I don't really trust banks, but I have to have one. So when they took that money out, there was nothing in my account when they did it. But apparently because they're the government, they can do it and just pull it and the bank has to pay them.
Oh.
So they overdrew my bank. At that time, it was like $850. I'm like, are you joking?
We'll take the little extra. Thank you.
You know me. I can't go to my doctors. I can't drive. I can't use my bank account. I can't. What is wrong with you people? How did this happen? I'm at the Social Security office going, you people are stupid. Somebody dropped the ball. If somebody dies in California, what does that have to do with the Social Security here in Texas?
Exactly.
What
That's
happened?
weird. That's
They're
weird.
like, we used to hold a California ID. I said, yeah, I kind of grew up there a little bit, but I haven't been there since I was, what, 18, 20?
They got their computer system kind of messed up, or maybe they didn't dust off the right box in the corner. I don't know. I had that with I think it was Sears or something, and I had, because I had the coverage of, you know, if any accidents or anything, the insurance for one of my credit cards. I think it was Sears, and it was all taken care of after my accident. I swear it was like 15 years later, 16 or something. They found me somewhere. Then they called up and they're like, you owe us. And I'm like, what? I don't owe you nothing. It's been taken care of in court. I said, what did you do? Find a box in the corner with my name on it, dust it off, and go, let's see if we can get some money out of her again. You know?
Right?
That's
what I was waiting for. I was waiting for somebody to come and call me and tell me I owed them something. And I was going to say, well, I'm dead. So good luck.
Yeah, you can check everything. I can't
I've been written off. I don't know what to say.
I'm haunting you now.
So when I went down there, I had the people at the Social Security office laughing because they're like, okay, we're going to have to re-up everything for you. I said, good. I said, can you do me a favor? And he goes, what? I said, can you take everything that's on my Social Security number away, seeing I died, so I can start all over again? Like all my credit? He's looking at me going, we can't do that. It's illegal. I said, I'm pretty sure it was illegal for you guys to kill me too.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure. What is wrong with you?
Well, it's
just
okay.
give me that one solid square favor and I won't bitch about this.
Yeah, they'll use it.
Clear my credit.
Two wrongs don't make a right. They can make a wrong and it's all right, but you can't.
Yeah, right? I'm like,
Right.
or at least give me a new Social Security number. Well, it doesn't matter. It'll transfer over. I'm like, you people are so unfair. You're so unfair. I said, I'll tell you what. Just keep me dead. I'll go change my name, find a blank birth certificate, and I'll just start all over again myself. And they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, but you killed me.
Other people do it. Why not me?
Come on, let's be reasonable here. So yeah, it was a walking mess for probably about 2-3 weeks before they finally got everything straight. Wow. And it was horrible. It was horrible. So
wow. I can't. Yeah, I don't know how I'd react to something like that. Like, I have what? Nothing? I'm dead? What?
Yeah. It was quite you know, I wasn't upset about it. I actually found it kind of humorous, really, for a little while. But
Right.
when it restricted me from getting my medication and all this other stuff,
There's
I was
stuff
like,
that will
"Oh,
keep
y'all
you
gotta
alive.
fix this.
It's
You
like
gotta fix this. I don't know what to say, but it's got to be fixed."
it's like Monty Python. I'm not dead yet. I'm not dead yet. Where they're like, bring out your dead, and
I
I'm not
told
dead
I
yet.
told my doctor when I was in the office, yeah, I felt like that cat
Monty
laying in
Python.
the sun, looking at one eye at the vultures. I am not dead yet.
Oh, yeah.
Dead yet.
We had some. We have turkey vultures up here. They just came.
Yes.
They just came in, and there was 7 of them. And I'm watching a couple over this way. I'm like, oh, they're back, cool. And then I see Kiki. She crouches and starts to go, and I'm like, you what? And I looked up over here, and there was a couple of them. They were pretty low, and I'm like, she's not dead yet. She's not dead yet.
I do that when I see them flying around. They're flying around looking for things, and I'll be outside having a conversation. I'll just look up and go, "I'm not dead yet."
Yep.
They'll be like, "I guess," and I'm like, "Do I smell funny? Do I smell funny? Is it me they're looking for?"
I looked at it as a greeting because they've just come back up to Michigan, and I usually will. I talk to animals all the time. When it was super windy today, so they glide,
Yeah.
and they don't have claws to sit on trees or anything. And so I'm like, oh, it's a beautiful day today. Soar well, fly free, soar. I do that all the time.
Just do it over that way so you don't poop on me.
Yeah, knock on plastic. I haven't gotten that happened yet. I had a flock of crows, because the crows will bar up coming through in the morning, and I remember them all going over, and I'm like, wow, this is, oh gosh, please don't. I had like
Yeah,
about 100
right.
going over me.
Hey, I was in the car with a friend of mine. It was actually her car, and she was in the military, and I was driving her to work so I could borrow her car for something. And we had the air on, but she had the window cracked just a little bit, so because she was smoking. So we're driving, and we get to a red light. We stop, and all of a sudden she goes, "Oh!" I said, "What?" And she looked at. You want to talk about butt target? One bird flew over the car and pooped in a way that it came through that crack in the window and splattered all over her shoulder. I said, "Damn, that was some good butt control right there."
Oh, I would have
Right
died
there.
laughing. What? That happened? Wow. That bird
And
was
I'm
like,
just looking
yeah.
at her going, I said, "What did you do to that bird for it to aim through that crack in the window?" Just to
That
shove out your shoulder.
That happened to my mom with the moon roofs, the sunroofs. My mom was at a light, and she's like sitting there, and she's a well endowed at the time lady, and it went right down in me, down her shirt. And she started yelling. I was like, "What's the matter, Mom?" She's like, "I just got bird stuff." And I look over, and I'm like, "Oh God,
it got me. It pooped on me. It got me."
Yeah. So goodness,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like birds, but not that. No, thank you.
Right. Well, I think we're going to get out of here. I'm going to try to take my meds and see if I can get my dog to eat something. He's not been happy with dinners tonight and last night. He's just been picking like he's finicky. He's like, don't reheat that for me. I want something fresh. I'm like, oh my God, this dog.
Yeah,
so I told him that I would make us chicken wings tonight so he could have some chicken wings. That'll make him feel better. He likes his fresh chicken. He's so spoiled.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that he's so spoiled. He's a little chicken wing. Here's your little wing, buddy.
He's spoiled.
Yeah, I have one too, but she's really tired today.
Oh, Norma, seagulls will poop on anything and everything.
Oh, yeah, they will.
Can.
They'll attack you at the grocery store.
Seagulls are like the poop machines
and they
of
get
the
you.
air.
There was a lady at a grocery store that was being attacked by some seagulls. She had her grocery bags and stuff. And I was like, it was years ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that poor lady. And my kids were like, what's the matter, Mom? And I'm like, she's getting attacked by seagulls.
She must have had something they wanted.
I used to go to Wendy's. I don't eat fast food, but my kids did once in a while. I take them to treat them, but I just never in my life. I know. But we'd take French fries, chuck them out the window to feed them. You know, I'm like, but you just gotta roll up your windows because they're kind of mean. They will go after you. You know, like beaches, they say not to take food out on the sandy beaches.
Yep.
Like when I was up in Rhode Island, because somebody didn't listen. I seen a bunch of young people and pretty girls and boyfriends or whatever. Next thing they're screaming, food's flying everywhere because they're being attacked by a bunch of.
I tell you, when I lived in California, I had started off this job where I did security in a big ritzy place. Dennis Rodman's mom lived there, and she had horses and stuff. So one night I had stopped by Taco Bell before I went, and I had a bag of those cinnamon twist things.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
So I look, and there's a big raccoon come up out of the thing. So I threw it to it. Okay. Didn't think anything of it. I'm sitting there, and went back into like the little sewer drain thing. And all of a sudden I look, and it comes out with its whole entire family, including Grandma and Grandpa. So I'm throwing them all the cinnamon things. Okay. Now they're gone. And they're all sitting there looking at me. They started climbing on top of the car, wanting to get in the window. I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta go. Start the car and drive away. I gotta get away from these things. I'm like, I don't have any more. So I decided I will never, ever feed a raccoon cinnamon twisties from Taco Bell because they like them way too much.
They tell their family.
Oh my God, it came up with the big one, 3 little ones, and another one that was medium size, and then 2 older ones. I'm like, oh my God, he brought his whole damn family up here.
That is the clan. I'll be right back. Go get it, the family.
Took it in there and probably went to everybody, look what I got here. Everybody have a bite. See if you like it. Let's go.
It's like monkeys in other countries. Other countries, you got to be careful. You don't have food in your backpacks or this and that, because they jump on you out of the trees and they'll get in your backpacks and they'll steal your stuff. Yeah.
Norma, they can still get on the roof of your car, man. They were on the windshield scratching at me. And I'm showing them the bag. Dude, look, it's empty.
Oh my gosh, they do get mean though sometimes, so you're lucky. They've got their little hands and they growl and they get their teeth and
I was like, oh my God. So yeah, that won't ever happen again.
Now, I like raccoons. I've fed some baby raccoons before.
Yeah, we put the cat food out. You know, like my landlord will put it out around the corner from her place, not from her door. And the raccoons will come up and eat it. So will the
possums.
And she's got this little dog house out there that has a flapper door on it, right? So one night she's sitting out there going to have a cigarette, and the cats come walking up and they just peek in the flap and they leave. And she's like, "What are they doing?" And she looks in there, and one of the possums decided that was going to be their new house.
Aww.
And the cats were not allowed in there with it. It would share the food, but did not want the cats in its house. So yeah, that was pretty funny.
That's cute. Possums aren't mean. We used to have one, and
you corner them. They can be.
Well, yeah, if you mess with them, but they're not like raccoon, you know. And they eat they eat ticks. They eat ticks.
They do.
And yeah, I think that's pretty cool. About that.
I had the first place I lived at before I moved here. When I first moved in there, people had told me we have a mama possum around here. Oh, okay, no big deal. So after I lost my leg, I had gone out front to sit there and have a cigarette, and I'm just looking at the sky because it was so clear that night. looking at all the stars, and I felt something on my leg. And I looked down, and it was a possum. And she had gotten up on my leg like a dog would, and she's looking at me, and I'm like, oh, hi. I don't have no food, but would you like a cigarette? Is that what you want?
Yeah, really, here you go.
I don't have no food. But yeah, she used to be around about all the time. What is wrong with you, Putin? Putin, what are you doing? Well, I swear sometimes I think you're hanging out with the bad neighborhood kids smoking crack. What are you doing?
Oh, no. Norma has a big stick. She takes care of things. She says, go feed him.
And a big stick. Go feed him. She says, go feed him. Hey, what do you want? Get away from that. Get away from the front door. You are not allowed to bark at the neighbors because they're out there smoking. Come here, you killer thing, you.
Yes, he needs to be fed.
I have new neighbors, and they go out front to smoke, and it's like he goes to the very base of the door, right at the corner, and he'll put his nose in there, and all of a sudden he
Probably scares the crap
like
out
a
of him.
gremlin. I'm like, what are you doing?
No, that would be fun to be on the outside to look at the two people and see them, all the time and stuff.
Oh my god. He acts like he's gonna buff up and he's gonna tear somebody up. It's like only if they're wearing flip-flops, buddy. Only if they're wearing flip-flops. Don't know what to say.
Gotta watch out. Ankle biters.
He's so rotten. He's so rotten sometimes. But if I let him out there, he'll just run up to him like, hey.
Oh, right. I know. He's a big guy behind the door.
Yes, he is.
And that's good though,
Yeah.
actually.
Almost like the wizard behind the curtain. You open the curtain, he's like, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right, guys, keep an eye out for the notifications. Like I said, I haven't talked to Susie yet today. She'll probably call me sometime tonight. What time is it now? 10 o'clock our time, so 10:23. So she'll probably call me about 11, 12 o'clock. And I'll find out if William's going to be on tomorrow, if we're going to wait until next Friday for him. And I know that I want to do some more of our haunted, creepy little location things. So I've just got to make myself get up and do it because I just, like I said, I haven't been feeling 100% lately. So
I'm right with you, kind of. I mean, I do what I got to do here, but there's times where I don't know what's going on lately either with myself. I don't know if it's this weather weirdness, and it's all of us. It's all of us that's getting it because I haven't felt like whatever it is. It's just weird. It's well,
maybe I'll get lucky and I just can get a boat when it rains and I can fish in my front room.
There you go.
It's crazy. Anyways, but all right, everybody, we are going to go ahead and let you go. And we will talk to you later. Y'all have a good night. And like always, everybody, please be nice. Please be kind to one another. Have a good night.
Good night.